Finally reaching the classroom after the usual walk from the dormitories, I step inside. My eyes immediately turn to the third seat from the left in the back row, Hanako's seat. It's empty, and after glancing around the classroom, it looks like she isn't here yet. The two girls from the newspaper club are here in the two seats to the left of Hanako's, as are Shizune and Misha, but that's about it. We exchange morning greetings before I take my seat. I have to admit that this is a bit of a relief. This gives me at least a few more minutes to think. Not that I haven't been doing so previously. Ever since our trip to town, Hanako's been on my mind. I still don't know what to make of my relationship with Hanako. I like her, I can admit that much to myself. I want to protect and shield her from the pain she feels. I really don't think my feelings are just those of friendship anymore. But, that said, I feel like I don't even know her. If I made a move on her, how would she take it? Is she in an emotional state that allows her to make reasonable decisions about a relationship? How would she cope with anything that might happen afterwards? There's also the possibility that I'm just completely misinterpreting Hanako. Not as difficult to do with someone whose social schemes seem so underdeveloped. The sounds of footsteps come up to the door, making me perk up. It just ends up being Mickey. She barely acknowledges my existence when I accidentally make eye contact with her. I'm about to look away, but another person comes in not long after she takes her seat. I feel myself freeze as I see Hanako enter. This is an irrational reaction, but I have no idea how I should act or what I should say to her. For a moment, our eyes meet. And then, just as quickly, she looks away and moves to her seat without saying a single word. As is now usual for the period following classes, my face is buried deep in a book I find thoroughly uninteresting. Studying is not something that comes naturally to me. I didn't study a lot before coming to Yamaku, and until now I've largely managed to coast through on talent alone. It's frustrating that I can't do that anymore. Judging by the faces of the other students in the library, I don't think I'm alone in my distaste for this. Misery loves company, I suppose. I decided to spend lunchtime with Hanako, since we haven't had lunch together for a while now. I may as well have spent the time studying though, aside from pathetically small snippets of small talk. There was barely a word said between us. Why does she keep doing this to me? I just want to protect her, to be there for her, but every time I feel like we're coming closer, we end further away. Are you busy? Hanako? My head whips around in surprise, causing her to retreat in fright. That was bad timing. If I hadn't been thinking about her at that very moment, I probably wouldn't have been nearly so startled. Sorry, you just startled me. I found myself staring at her longer than I should, so I go back to the text lying on the table in front of me. I feel like I'm just starting at the words rather than actually reading. I get the feeling Hanako can notice this as well, so I sigh and close the book. What's up? I was just wondering what you were reading. She looks a little downcast after my reaction to seeing her. Giving up on the prospect of getting any more work done, I get up and return the book to its place on a nearby shelf. Just an English textbook. Has it helped? It helped me realise that I don't like English, yeah. Hanako gives a small giggle. I may muse on the strange state of our friendship, but I do know that such little gestures are things that I wouldn't see were I not at least some distance closer to her than when we first met. I look at her for a moment, thinking about what I do and don't know about her. It's a slightly depressing topic. Is something wrong? If I want to know more about her, maybe I should stop being so evasive about it. Talking with Lily as an equal rather than being constantly in fear of causing her to become upset worked fine. So I should just try a straightforward approach with Hanako as well. Hey Hanako, do you mind if I ask you a question? I don't mind. I want to know what your life was like. Your life before coming to Yamaku. She hesitates. I briefly consider backing off, but she seems to be taking the question quite seriously. I sit and watch her, silently letting her take her time. She's not making eye contact with me. It looks almost as if she's arguing with herself into letting herself open up to me more. Her answer finally comes in a stiff, almost reluctant nod. She looks far more tense than she did before I asked. Okay, but But in return, you have to tell me something about your life as well. I nod and follow her as she begins to walk out the library so we can talk. By now, most of the students have already left the main building, so apart from a few people hovering around the club rooms, the hallways are largely empty. I guess we'll start with coming to Yamaku. Let's see, I was in the hospital when my parents first told me about Yamaku Academy. The doctors told me I shouldn't go to my old school anymore. My parents agreed and persuaded me to apply for Yamaku, even though it would mean living away from them for the first time. It must have been hard for you. Well, yeah, I have to admit that it was. My parents both work long hours and full time, so having to live responsibly independently wasn't anything new to me. It was the fact that I was going to a school for disabled students that hit hardest, I think. And you? A small group of chatting girls passes us as we near the stairs, with Hanako pressing herself tightly to my side until we reach the ground floor. She doesn't usually come this close while walking in the school, so I'm left a little put off. The staff at the orphanage offered me some options on what I could do. Middle school hadn't been good, so I thought that Yamaku might be better. It was isolated, and I thought it might be easier to get by here, with most of the others being disabled. It's pretty ironic that the reasons Hanako looked forward to Yamaku are the exact reasons I hated the idea. To me, it felt like it was being shunted somewhere away from society and everyone I knew. To Hanako, that was probably an inviting prospect. What was life like at the orphanage? It was okay. The staff there were nice and they took care of us. The children there didn't talk to me much, but I didn't really want to talk to them either, so I didn't mind. The orphanage had a little library, so I started to read to pass the time. The staff didn't mind it because it made me easier to handle than many of the other children. You didn't make any friends there? No, I think my life was on hold during that time. I knew it, but I didn't mind. To think her life was on hold for all that time, though, depending on when the fire happened, that was a huge chunk of her life. No parents, no friends, apparently no relatives. We walked through the door into the courtyard. I expect to need to avert my eyes from the sun, but by now it's well into sunset. Hanako's eyes keep flicking up to me, so I look away from her a bit. What was it like in the hospital? I quickly clear my thoughts and try to refocus them. I hesitate for a bit, but I know I have to tell her. We're close enough for her to feel comfortable telling me this, and it's only fair that I reciprocate. It was okay at times, but at others, it was pretty bad. At the beginning, everyone sent their sympathies and came to visit often. It was just like breaking an arm or something. Meeting all my friends was one of the good times. Iwanako came in often as well, more often than anyone else. But there were bad times too. When my friends slowly stopped visiting, I began to realise how grave my situation was. It reminded me that this wasn't just a broken limb, but that now I was a different person than before. Even the times Iwanako would spend with me became torturous. By the end, we were reduced to silence, whereas before she'd be talking constantly. But that's how Iwanako always was. She may have been a fragile person, but she would just talk constantly to try and hide that fact. Not about anything in particular, just talk. I think the three lowest points would have been when my parents told me I wouldn't be going to my old school anymore, my birthday passing while I was in hospital, and when Iwanako left for the last time. We leave the school buildings behind us as we begin to follow the main path through the gardens. There may have been the odd bystander in the school buildings, but outside we're practically alone. What was your middle school like? I liked it. I grew up in a really metropolitan area, and the middle school was nearby, so it was pretty crowded. I didn't mind it, probably because I'm used to being in crowds and around lots of other people. I got good marks, and I played soccer with my friends. I spent a fair bit of time hanging out with them after school as well. Did get teased a bit over my hair, though. Your hair? I grimace a little as I put my hand over my hair to cover it. I'd keep getting tufts and strands that refused to flatten or stay where I wanted them, and my mother wouldn't just let me get my hair shaved. It had a habit of popping out, no matter how much I tried to brush it down. It still does, a little. I was worried I'd get that reply. Sorry, I didn't mean to... I give a mild laugh and wave it off. It's fine, I know it still does. It feels strange to have someone act so interested in my past. If it were anyone else, I'd think they were just acting polite. But that's something I really don't think Hanako would do. Or if she did, she'd do it so badly that it would be obvious. There are a number of girls in the common room on the ground floor, and Hanako presses herself to my side once more as we pass them. I expect her to break off, but instead she continues to cling on to me as we walk towards the stairway. Something about the way she's holding on to me feels different from the usual. I'm left deep in thought as we walk up the stairs and down the hallway. It's only when we stop that I look up and realise that I've been following her without question. Why did we come to your dormitory room? She looks straight at the door without much as a glance in my direction. Hanako? She moves to answer but stops herself. Instead, she silently breaks on my side, opens her door and steps inside. I look up and down the hallway, a bit lost as to exactly what I should do. Shrugging, I decide to follow her since I don't have any other reason to do otherwise. Hanako stands in the middle of her room and looks straight at me. It's unnerving when she does this, as it's such an unusual action for her. I open my mouth to speak, but she preempts me. Could you close and lock the door? Hanako's hand reaches for her chest, grabbing her blouse at her heart. Oh, we know what's happening here, don't we? Oh God.